Since the early days of archaeology, artifacts and excavation sites have always been in danger of being destroyed. Archaeology is a destructive practice. The act of removing centuries-old artifacts from sites that can be buried deep under the surface is bound to turn out some broken pottery. Three-dimensional imaging of those artifacts and sites can help prevent any further breakage. By using software like AutoCAD, ArcGIS, and similar ground and elevation modeling software, an archaeologist can now fully recreate a site from photographs and other data collected from the site itself. This ability to have a digital version of the dig means that if anything is disturbed, or if the site is closed and covered up in the future, there will always be a precise visual record of it. Having a three-dimensional model accurate down to just a few centimeters would be extremely helpful in viewing the whole archaeological site in its entirety. The software works in a way that allows users to photograph every detail of a site and then overlay those photos on a three-dimensional wireframe that is made using measurements from the site. In 1996, the students at the University of Colorado attempted to recreate the structures that surround foundations at a site in El Salvador called Sarin. The students used site data analysis and drawings to extrapolate the scant information into actual architectural buildings in a small town. They modeled the inside of the buildings as well, using 3D renders of artifacts from the site. For modeling the artifacts themselves, software like PhotoModeler, OpenSim, and Blender can be used in conjunction with photography and laser scanning to produce true color and texture three-dimensional models of artifacts found on sites. The rendering of artifacts in 3D allows for the actual artifact to stay at the site if need be, and therefore the archaeologist does not have to worry about ruining the artifact in transit or at a lab. With an artifact modeled in 3D in very high detail, we can learn almost anything about it that we would find using the actual artifact itself. The ability for an archaeologist to have a computer model of an artifact or site has many benefits. One major benefit is access. Anyone with a computer and the right software can examine a 3D model of a site or artifact. That means that students or researchers across the world can work on a project simultaneously without ever leaving their respective locations. Another major benefit is space reduction. Being able to have an entire artifact collection contained in one computer hard drive means less space used for storing and curation of collections. This benefits small facilities and those without the monetary backing that some larger schools and museums have. Three-dimensional rendering of sites and artifacts can also have an effect on sites or collections that fall under the jurisdiction of NAGPRA. If a site is suspected of being of Native American origin, it can still be studied by using renderings taken from photographs on site. In this way, archaeologists can respect the Native people while still learning more about American history. If the studying of a three-dimensional rendering is not enough, there are new developments being made every day in the field of 3D printing. 3D printing is exactly what it sounds like. A special type of printer uses 3D modeling software to map out and print an actual three-dimensional physical object in a variety of materials and even colors. 3D printing is different from the previous favorite method of artifact recreation, casting. Whereas a cast uses the actual artifact to create a mold, and some artifacts are not able to be cast or damage can occur to the original artifact, 3D printing uses the same modeling software that I have mentioned previously, and can be made with no worry of damaging a priceless artifact. Using a 3D printer to recreate an artifact or site at any scale could be a huge breakthrough in modern archaeological study. From the site to the photograph to the computer to the 3D printed object, the actual artifact never needs to leave the site it was found in for it to be studied in detail in labs all over the world. Currently, a company called Sketchfab offers 3D printer-ready renderings of some artifacts from the collection at the British Museum in London. Anyone with access to a 3D printer can therefore print a scale or life-size model of an ancient bust of Julius Caesar, for example. The Smithsonian is also looking into creating 3D models of some of its famous pieces. Another amazing use for 3D printing has already seen some implementation by archaeologists at Harvard University. Joseph Green and Adam Aja have printed a complete version of a lion statue that was smashed 3,000 years ago. By using 3D modeling of the recovered pieces, they were able to reassemble the lion digitally and then print out an unsmashed recreation. Though the 3D printing of an entire archaeological site has yet to be attempted, I believe that it could be used to great effect. The Smithsonian Institute is currently looking to release some 3D computer models of sites and artifacts that could be printed. Having a small-scale replica of a full site such as Liang Bua could lead to a new view on the perception of archaeology. Viewing a replica of a complete site from angles that can only be achieved by holding it in one's hand could lead to new ideas about culture, architecture, and what a site may have been used for. Also, the ability to display whole excavations in a museum setting for people to view where the artifacts they're looking at actually came from is a very appealing idea. Combining the abilities to model sites with great accuracy, fix objects that were broken ages ago, and recreate what buildings may have looked like all into one three-dimensional model could mean that with enough computing power and calculations, entire sites, towns, or even cities lost thousands of years ago could be brought to life in the digital realm for the benefits of archaeologists and curious people alike. Imagine one day viewing the streets of Pompeii from a first-person point of view in an extremely accurate simulation and model put together using site data and artifact scanning to make the experience as real as possible. With all of this technology coming together, archaeology will have never felt so real. There are still some issues with three-dimensional modeling and printing that will need to be worked out if we want to have the perfect representation like the scenario I dreamed up in the last slide. But with the medium only growing and becoming more precise as the years progress, that type of digital archaeology may not be far off. In conclusion, 3D modeling and printing of sites and artifacts is still in its infancy. It could well be an emerging anthropological field that will prove itself in a few years, but as of now, it is mostly theoretical and experimental. Until the day comes that we can no longer access true sites with our bare hands, I think this type of archaeology will be more of a sideshow to the actual artifacts and dig sites themselves.